World Jam Global Radio. This is Clarity.
Okay, this is Kervin, Julien on Issues Today, World Jam Global Radio. It's Saturday, the 9th of January. Happy New Year once again. Now, based on the back of what was going on last week on our show, we've got a very important show today, and this week we're not going to be starting with any opening tracks. We're going to be going live directly to our audience, and we have a celebrated lineup of guests tonight, including the legendary R&B and soul singer Ronnie Canada, whose opening track on my show last week caused such a storm that the show was taken down on 3 platforms that it was loaded onto: YouTube, Live Leaks, and SoundCloud. Ronnie's on the show, and we're going to be talking to him very shortly about the reasons why he gave the show this particular track and the authenticity to do so. We've also got, once again, we've got Charlie Grapsby on the show, activist from Albuquerque, and he'll be talking about what went on last week and how things moved on since then. We've also got, once again, we've got Den Mother, who's going to be focusing on the restructuring of our community and support networks to help all the, not just the activists, but those people that are affected by some of the things that we talked about on the show last week and what we'll be talking about on the show again this week. We also have Outlaw from Anonymous, another good friend of ours, and he's going to be focusing on the psychology of the cyberbully, for want of a better word. We also have Dinah Vargas, activist from Albuquerque, who's also a friend of the show and has been on the show before, and she will be talking about various things that are taking place freshly right in Albuquerque as we speak. So before we go any further, let's first and foremost say a very big good evening to my dear friend of over 25 years, the legendary Ronnie Canada. Evening, Ronnie.
Good evening, Kervin.
How are you, sir? Good. Well, you've obviously heard the introduction to the show and the controversy. Your opening track has been used as an excuse to bring down the show that we brought up last week, which was entitled Trolls, The Damage Is Done. And Trolls, The Damage Is Done is basically about the cyberbullies that have been causing a lot of havoc over the internet. But for some reason, they used the fact that we opened up the show with your track as an excuse to launch an attack on the show and get the show removed from every platform. Does that surprise you, first and foremost, Ronnie?
I'm very much surprised.
Okay.
I'm very much.
And why does that surprise you?
It surprised me because I gave you permission to use the song. Okay, I wrote that song with Martel Malavasi. We wrote that song in Tenerife together. So if there's any confusion from his end, I'll check with him and see. But I also understand that there's a problem going on with SoundCloud, with BMI, ASCAP, and all the big companies that represent all the artists. Spotify, they're all they're going through changes right now to make Spotify and SoundCloud and all of these people pay for using our music, which they haven't been paying any of the artists anyway.
Okay. So, at the end of the day, we have your permission, and we're authenticated in using that track to open our show, right?
Of course you have my permission. I gave you the permission, and the song is copywritten. I've got the song copywritten with BMI, okay? If I have to go through any legalities and check and see why someone would stop you from using the song, then I'll find out.
Okay.
But I gave you
the good news is we had a long apology from Live Leaks, the owner of Live Leaks, Hayden Hewitt. And the show was put back on Live Leaks, but we've not had the same success with SoundCloud or YouTube. Den Mom.
Yes.
There was a question that you wanted to ask.
Oh, I was hoping for a couple of things. One, I would love to see just a beautiful little piece of paper that we could publicize to that effect, so that the next time somebody comes at us with that particular issue, we could be like, oh, and here's the gentleman who owns the thing. But I was curious, is there anywhere else that it appears on the internet? Because, that does bear into our issues a little bit.
Yeah, did you get that, Ronnie?
It's on Reverb Nation.
Okay.
Reverb Nation, SoundCloud.
You are breaking up there, Ronnie. Your signal's gone weak on us.
As well, SoundCloud. So like I said, I'll check with Martel Malavasi as well and get his permission as well, so we can both like send you emails saying that you can use the song.
Okay.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Right, that'll be perfect. Has anybody else got any questions for Ronnie? Guys,
Other than how did it get so awesome?
How did it get so awesome? You know, I don't mind giving Ronnie a couple of minutes to talk about some of the things that he does, because Ronnie, unknown to a lot of people, is an absolute legend in the R&B circle. And Ronnie's friends list, as far as the names are concerned, believe you me, the amount of people that he has introduced me to, which has now allowed me to create what is referred to on World Jam Global Radio as Dr. Feelgood's stable of legends. And we go back, we're talking about things like, from Michael J. Calhoun from the Daz Band. We're talking about Nathaniel Best from the OJs. We're talking about legends of soul and R&B stateside. So Ronnie, just tell them a little bit about you and where you started in your music career, and then we'll quickly move on.
Well, originally born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. Come up working with groups like a group called SOUL, Sounds of Unity and Love, which is a very big cult group right now internationally. Okay, then I started working with the OJs. Okay, as a roadie, as a sound technician with a group called Crews that they were producing and managing. Then I became a member of a group called Sly, Slick, and Wicked, which was managed by the OJs and by James Brown, the godfather of soul, okay, which went on to record records on Motown Records. We had a record on CBS Records, All I Want Is You, which I was a member of that group with the same company that had Wild Cherry, played their funky music, White Boy. I'm also appearing on 4 of Edwin Starr's albums, who was my cousin, and we have a brand new release coming out very soon. It's by Marlon McNichols and Judge Jules and Michael Skins that I'm singing on as well with Edwin, which would be the 5th album that I'm singing on with Edwin Starr. I've also sung with Hank Collett, who made the record The Twist, which is also the #1 song of all-time favorite hits of all times, is #1 right now for Chubby Checker on Billboard. And I've sung with Betty Wright, cleanup woman who's coming to town here in London on April 16th. April the 10th, she just sent me a message last night thanking me for wishing her a happy birthday. Like I said, Platters, Coasters, Drifters. I've been with the Drifters over 30 years, drifting around the world, from Spain back to Vegas, with the Coasters, Drifters, and Platters all on one big show. Theater, Caramel House, done that, television shows, radio, doing radio voiceovers for KISS Radio 100 London and for Radio 1, which are some of the biggest stations worldwide. Millions of people have heard my voice. I'm doing voiceovers for you, doing voiceovers in Sydney, Australia, Spain, France, and everybody's calling me now asking me for drops and everything. So, and I've got so many records out, I can't count them. I've sung with Harold Melvin, the original Blue Notes, without Harold Melvin. I was the lead singer for a group which changed the name to Caviar because of some legalities with court issues with Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. So the guys changed the name to Caviar to stop all of the legalities with Harold over the name of the group. So I'm just saying, God has blessed me to sing gospel and be with some of the biggest gospel singers in the world. The Reverend Hubbard, the Hubbard Singers, who was a member of Raymond Raspberry Singers, who I sung with before the Sly Slick and before my career took off. And I've got so many records out. If you go on Spotify, if you go on iTunes, Traxor, Beatport, I'm there. I'm all over the place. But still trying to get that #1, which I've been denied for so long. But 2016, I think, is going to be a great year. And I'm also, right now, working with Dr. Marlon McNichols with William Guest, who died from Gladys Knight Pitts, whose going home service is actually today in Atlanta, Georgia, which Nathan Best is speaking there, and he's one of the pallbearers, and Marlon McNichols will be there. I'm also with his company as well right now. I'm one of the lists of the international people that's connected with his record company, which I've got the paperwork here. So it's a lot of things going on right now. And working with Donna Allen, Lily Nicole McLeod, which I put your way. And so many other artists, they keep sending me music to try to get me to promote them. And I just don't know what God has in store for me to do. Maybe I could be the next Barry Gordy and don't even know it.
Well, listen, Ronnie, it's been great catching up with you. And again, feel free to stay on the show and listen in as we continue to move on. We just wanted to affirm and reinforce the fact that we've got your permission to use the track, and we'll continue using it from next week onwards, as we always have done. I didn't want to risk losing the show this week because we've got important matters to discuss. But yeah, once again, that's Ronnie Canada, the legend that is of soul and R&B.
Kervin.
Yeah.
May I ask him one further question?
Go ahead.
What did he think of the show?
I think it's a fantastic show. Kervin has really blown my mind, starting off with World Global Jam and coming from his gospel station to this station right now, which the activist side of him, I'm seeing something like I used to work with people in Miami. I remember when Les Brown was doing this kind of stuff and stopping riots and everything. So Kervin's got a lot going on right now, and I love this program.
Thank you very much, Ronnie. You were also talking about something quite similar to what's going on here today that had taken place in Miami. Somebody that got killed by police. Do you want to just talk about that for a second?
Well, when I was living in Miami, Florida, like I said, singing with the Blue Notes, Omari, another group I sung with, who we may be reuniting, okay? A guy named Neville Johnson, he was in a pinball a recreation place, playing pinball, and something broke out, and the boy got killed for no reason by this police officer. His name was Alvarez. And there was a very big issue about that all over Miami, and it started riots. And this was back in 1984, 83, and Les Brown was married later, but Les Brown was one of the biggest black activists in all of Miami. Les Brown was like the Martin King of radio, and Les went out there actually and told these people to stop the riots, and they stopped them. Okay, he could either start a riot or stop a riot. And he got a program you're doing right now. But this boy got killed. Neville Johnson got killed innocently just playing pinball. And the police department, they all went against Neville Johnson and tried to make him look like he was a bad boy or something. And the boy wasn't doing anything at all. And this guy, a Latin police officer, Alvarez, killed the boy in cold blood and got away with it. And it's a shame today. Tamir Rice, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. Tamir Rice, I know the Rice family. I don't know Tamir, but I know the Rice family. One of my friends I went to school with, Ulysses Barnes, he's a Rice. His family is Rice. Donald Rice. All of these guys were very popular singers in Cleveland, Ohio. And they're a very good family. There's no reason, even if a guy was out there playing with a toy gun. I used to play with toy guns when I was a kid. And you out there and the police officer, they lying on people to kill Michael Brown. They just keep killing our people and getting away with it. And it's a shame, and it's got to stop. Even Sean Levert from Levert, the old Jays is his father, Eddie Levert. The police beat Gerald Levert up for no reason because I read an article. Gerald Levert was following one of his friends home, and the car broke down. Gerald got out to help him. The police came up and started the problem, and they beat Gerald Levert up. So the Levert family has been abused by the Cleveland police and treated like some little scum in the street when they were millionaires and doing a lot for the city. Even if you go on YouTube and you push up Sean Levert, you can see him sitting in the chair with the police officers got him shackled, and he's crying out he needed medicine because he had an issue, he had problems with his blood pressure and stuff, asthma, whatever he had. And
I'm sorry, Ronnie, have you got something on in the background there?
no.
Right, somebody has, and whatever it is, it really needs to be muted or cut down because it's really interfering with the sound. Go ahead, Ronnie.
But like I said, getting back to that issue, the OJs, even as legendary as Eddie Levert is, from Cleveland, Ohio, they killed his son, the Cleveland Police Department. I believe that I heard that they got maybe $4 million from it, but it don't bring back his life and his children. Fatherless right now. I'm saying the Levert family is a very special family.
Right.
And how could this happen to people so famous that's done something for your city and they deserve better treatment than that? How can you let the police department keep getting away with killing our people?
Amen. Listen, Ronnie, the most important thing that has come out from what you've just said is the fact that what we're seeing here today, what we're talking about here today, is nothing new. This has been going on for a time. It's escalated to a whole new level, but it's no different. So, Charlie. Hi, Charlie.
Hey, how you doing?
Hopefully you've been listening to that, and you've heard what Ronnie has had to say. Sorry, let me just go back to Den Mother 1 minute. Did that answer your question for you? Den Mom?
Oh, I believe it did. I also believe somebody maybe... yes, I'm here.
Okay. Did that answer your question for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm getting major echo. I think it's possible somebody's got the show on live or something.
Yeah, that's what I think. Somebody's got the show on live in the background, and I can hear it feeding back. But still, let's move on because it's gone now, and we're now clear. So that's sounding good. All right. So if we're happy, I'm happy to move on and to get Charlie to come in now because Charlie, what Ronnie was clearly saying is that there is a history of this type of behavior from police. It's nothing new. It's not been over the last couple of years or so. He was talking about an incident that goes way back to 1984 in Miami, Florida.
A history of what kind of behavior from police? Police abuses?
Police brutality, unlawful killing, cover-ups, the whole scenario.
Oh, there's no question about it. I mean, it's the history of policing itself has been. People forget police forces only came about in the 19th century, beginning in England, which is why they wear traditionally blue and are called bobbies from Robert Peel, who was Home Secretary at the time. And then shortly after that, they were imported as an idea into New York City and elsewhere. I mean, people forget that before that, the police and fire departments in New York were really the Tammany Hall machine and competing machines, and they really weren't legitimate entities. But when police departments were instituted in England and then in the U.S. in the 19th century, the overwhelming population was very distrustful and did not like the idea. Again, that's why Robert Peel specifically used blue as the uniform for the bobbies to distinguish it from the red of the redcoats of the British Army, because people were fearful of arming the state to, in a sense, police, which didn't used to mean a police department. Police has a different meaning in terms of the verb, but to police them with force. It was very, very much not accepted, and has only in the recent years, with a very dangerous and frightening, very pro-authoritarian mindset in the American population, which goes contrary to every principle of the founding of this nation to distrust authority. And of course, the ones who trust it the most and the most pro-authoritarian are the ones who keep arguing about big government and libertarianism, and yet they're the first ones to arm the police and have them break down the doors. because they think it's just them. Those people are criminals. And hire the least common denominator and put them behind a badge with a gun. And these abuses are bound to happen.
Right. Okay. Now, one couple of things. Just bear in mind, Ronnie, stay tight. Are you still there, Ronnie? Stay there, because I believe that Ninja has. She wants to know if you think of the importance of citizen journalists and activists filming the police and putting themselves on the front line. We are having some tech issues. She wants to know what you think of the importance of the citizen journalists and activists filming the police and putting themselves on the front line. What do you think? That's what she's asking.
I think it's very important, because you have the evidence right there on the spot, which if you don't have CCC cameras like we have here in the UK, which I know they have in America right now, where you can see actual things happening on the street. They got the police with the videos in the car right now. I don't know if they're using them or not. I've seen some of the programs on your show, on your YouTube channel, some of the stuff you post, and some of the stuff that's just going on the news, on Sky, CNN, news all day long, somebody killing somebody's child or killing the guy in the streets in New York that couldn't even breathe, and they stomping him and kicking him. And the girl that just got killed, okay, she hung herself. They say she hung herself.
You mean Sandra Bland?
Yeah, Sandra Bland. Okay. Who to say? I've seen some footage on her as well that don't even relate to some of the evidence that they said she hung herself. I believe they hung this girl. I believe it.
I hear you. We've also got some additional...
Kervin,
Go ahead.
You know, on that point, too, and step aside just on the Sandra Bland thing, whenever you hear the word suicide associated with something in a jail, it's a red flag. And you need to take a very, very close look at what happened. And, of course, if you look at the how and why and what she was arrested for her to claim that she committed suicide for that is just implausible. It just makes no sense. Doesn't add up. But now let's get back to the importance of filming the police. As you and a bunch of people who've gotten to know me and know my history know, many, many years ago, before this became a phenomenon, particularly with cell phones and all that, and the rise of the camera and the cell phone, I began filming, and prior to that, audio recording every encounter I had with any authority. And that got me in trouble. They actually tried to prosecute me for wiretapping, for audio, for video, all that stuff. And if I hadn't have done that, they would have gotten away with their official lies, because what you can see, and it's all over the internet, the evidence is out there, you can look to the charges, you can listen to the allegations, and you can see the videos and listen to the audios, and you can see what is alleged, and what actually happened doesn't add up. And I take it very seriously enough that I joined up with an organization called PNAC, Photography is Not a Crime, whose primary focus was the right to film and photograph officials, and particularly police. And then I added into that my expertise in the area of public records laws, because the two overlap, and they become very powerful tools. And one day I think you should have Carlos Miller on the show about PNAC and Photography Not a Crime. But that's a really, really good point. I think, though, we really need to get to the issue of the trolls.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So go ahead.
No. Okay. So, having done the introduction to the show, and based on the fact that last week we started the show on Trolls, The Damage Is Done, and we looked at the role of the trolls and what the trolls had been doing. Our show was subsequently booted off the air, and we actually encountered, and I personally encountered for the first time in my entire life, at the age of 54, I encountered what it was to be trolled. And we received some horrendous trolling ourselves, as well as monitoring what was going on with the said trolls. Now, first and foremost, Charlie, I want you to just recap on kind of what started the process last week, how it started, and how we responded with that, before I then bring Outlaw in.
Well, it started as like this. As a result of some of our past shows and some of the group of people who have not just been listening but joining in with others in a community and a conversation about the issues that we're facing, and the need to address those serious issues of policy and practice in the real world, and then also having to deal with the problem of the abuse of the trolls and trying to disrupt and prevent citizen action against these public abuses, authority abuses. We began to discuss the impact that the trolls were having on our community of concerned citizens. And that doesn't mean anybody who's a membership list. I'm talking about just the people who are out there who are learning what's going on and see something wrong and want to stand up. And they stand up, particularly on the internet in something like Twitter. And next thing you know, their life is made hell by these people who come out of the woodwork and attack them, accusing them of all sorts of things, often just completely made up. And in one particular conversation, as we were discussing this and trying to say, maybe we should put our heads together to see what we can do to come to the aid of the victims of the trolls. I mean, and know what I mean by trolls here. I don't mean people with a differing opinion. I don't mean people who are persistent. I mean people who go out there with the intent to disrupt the discourse and the attempt to harass, intimidate, and harm the speaker. And that in power. And some people might call what I have particular, reverse trolling, and that's fine. But it's distinct. Yes, I was aggressive. Yes, I was persistent. Yes, I was meticulous, and yes, I went after them hard. So what happened was, and to just give you an example, is Stax was talking after she was on the show with us, and she referred to how we knew the past that she had with some serious harm done by some trolls.
Yeah.
And she said that it was reoccurring again. And she gave the name of the person. And so, without asking anybody's permission, but in the context of us having this conversation, I just went and I said, okay, I've heard enough. I went to that person on Twitter and I said, hey, play that game with me. And the reason I say that is this is not arrogance. It's certainly not something that anybody wants to call upon to have brought upon themselves.
Yeah.
I put myself out as a lightning rod only because, one, I've been through this all before, and nothing can hurt me in terms of – I can't say that. It does hurt inside. It does do harm outside if you don't counter it. But what I'm trying to prove to people is if you don't give them the power, they don't have any power. It's when you run and hide. It's when you get scared. It's when you let them affect you. And it's when you let them and you go quiet on this type of troll. Because one way to deal with a lot of trolls, the mere trolls, the nonsense trolls, is to ignore them. But this kind of troll, this just insidious kind of troll, you have to take their power away head on, because the silence, they want to steal away, they want to stop you from communicating as well as organizing with others, and they want their lies to be perceived as truths. So I said, try playing that game with me, because there's nothing in the world you can say about the facts of my life that are not already out there in the public sphere, and I have no problem with them being discussed openly. I know what I've done in the past. I know what harm I've done. I know what I've been accused of, and I have no problem with it. Go look at the record and find out for yourself. So I wanted to show people, if you stand up to the bully, not by being a bully per se,
but by being persistent and meticulous and countering them with facts and reason and constantly challenging every false statement they make, you can take the power away. And what happened was, sure enough, and ironically, the individual who started this immediately came to me and admitted what he had done, said he knows it was wrong and was sorry in a sense, doesn't exonerate him, and he's going to be held to account. But he then said, look, I'm a victim here too. These other people baited me into this. They conned me to do this. They got me to do their dirty work. And then I started finding out who this whole little group of really serious trolls who have been out there since the Trayvon Martin case and are, hyper racist. I mean, I have never seen, even if you go back to the worst days of the, pre-civil rights era, none of the racist people would say the kind of things publicly that these people are saying today.
Yeah.
We have gone, this is an enlightenment thing that I have watched over the past 2 years.
Yeah.
It's
frightening. On that note, Charlie, right? On that note, Charlie, how are they trying to incite the riots while we're still trying to call for non-violence? They do it in many ways. One, they pretend to be someone who's on our side, and they go and they say things that are calling for riots. Two, they go and they attack someone. We've got a police officer's wife, and we know that the police officer has these same views too, from Joliet, Illinois, who calls black people, all the black people, feral beasts, and openly says what that already means. But she actually elaborates and says, these are subhuman beings. Wow. Subhuman beings.
And so what they are doing is they are baiting people into a race war. On both sides, they are attacking people for being a person of color or a minority viciously, so that they have, a natural affinity to say, "Hey, man, stop! This is racist," and to maybe get carried away. And they're baiting the people who have, inner prejudices to bring them out. And it's a very dangerous. I don't think people realize. This country, the United States, is on the verge of a potential civil war, and a large part of that being a race war. That's not an understatement, or that's not an overstatement. That's an understatement. It's frightening.
I hear that. The funny thing was, I went into this and I did exactly the same thing as you did. Once I heard what Stax had been through, and I saw it started, I was compelled to get involved. To take the flack off Stax, because I really felt that she needed a break from this relentlessness that was taking place. But what came back at me shocked me to the core. Didn't upset me, just shocked me that there were people out there saying these kind of things willingly, and don't mind being identified for doing so, and had other people in support of what they were doing. But hear this, on top of the fact that they were allowed to do that, right? Here's what I don't understand, right? The responses from the platforms that we were operating under, i.e. YouTube, SoundCloud, and using the cover of the copyright as an excuse to ban or shut out our show, right? And Twitter in particular, who I've noticed causing grievance and problems to people who are challenging this form of behavior on Twitter, but yet persistently allowing these tweets to remain live and visible to those who can then be poisoned and join in and become part of this converted racist regime.
On that note, Kervin, let me just respond to that and then provide a segue from what I did personally, particularly to sort of draw this to the surface, and that what we began to do to try and provide a remedy, a positive solution. Let me just. The problem is Twitter is not being responsible and not being held to account. And, I have
with all of this, I've been called a child molester and a pedophile. Stupidly, because it's not only false, but I've already been through that and have won significantly. And so doing that to me was the stupidest thing they could possibly do. But I've made numerous formal complaints according to the policies and rules of Twitter, and Twitter responds back to do nothing. And only yesterday began doing very little of suspending people's accounts. But too late, too little. And even Charles M. Blow, came out and said when someone that last week said they were going to put a bullet in his head on Twitter, he responded according to their terms of service policy, and Twitter came back just like they've done with every one of mine, and we've been organizing others to do this, to make a paper trail of their complicity in this by filing these complaints with them and having them document that they're not doing anything. But Charles Blow got a response saying they found nothing in violation of the terms of service policy with a threat to put a bullet in his head.
I didn't get that. I mean, I saw that. I retweeted that myself, but I really didn't get how they managed to get away with not seeing that as a viable threat and something.
Because they don't fear being held to account. And so one of the things that in the segue, and eventually we can get to, I have been arguing is we need to bring a civil action, not just about one individual, but about our group of individuals, all of the victims.
Okay, let's kind of move it from there, because I want to bring in Outlaw for a second.
But bring Team Den Mom in.
Okay, Team Den Mom.
Bring Den Mom to talk about that, because we haven't just gone to attack the trolls, which is a way of neutering and neutralizing them. We've created a discursive platform whereby the victims have a place to turn to know that other people will be there for them and to help them out.
Okay.
And that is so valuable, and it's been amazing the response we've gotten. And Den Mom can really talk to that.
Den Mom, come on in, and here's where I bring you in, and on this point, how much of this creating the platform to support those that are being victimized on this do you think was responsible for the reaction we got from the trolls in the first place?
So, I think it had a great deal to do with some of the major elevations that we saw this week, especially, at least on the online platforms, with some of these individuals, because it had been at a fairly steady pace and targeting individuals within the movements for a bit there. And then, wouldn't you know, we have this program and everything goes crazy with the sound coming down off of every conceivable platform. And so, the idea for Team Den Mom as an entity, right, has been living in my head and others for some time, but it didn't manifest as an actual account or any clearinghouses. We've talked about having it until literally the day after the last program. And then here it is, and we're already in a week. There's discourse happening about this thing that we've created outside of the core group, and it's amazing to me. Even if it's a small following, it's growing, and there's likes coming in, there's shares coming in about people. Like you have this hashtag that's amazing, and I think the strength of it, honestly, comes from several things that we're just embodying as the ethic of the group. We're diversified and intersectional within groups and without them. We're not tied to any specific movement, and that's very important that we stay open-minded to the fact that this problem exists beyond the things that affect those people we individually know or may work with. So that's a big deal. We need to stay aware of how this is just a widespread problem in any movement that's trying to create social change. Second of all, we try to keep, and this I know is going to sound very Pollyanna, optimistic cynics over here at the team, but Twitter is not the place normally that you'd expect elevated discourse, but we're trying to keep our discourse at least at that elevated level to maintain the neutrality. Or an accusation, however outlandish or however plausible it may be. Respectfully, sir, that's quite a thing to say. However, you've provided no proof. So if you'd like to pursue this, please take it to DM. We've made our direct messages public because we want people to have access to the team to bring their concerns, I just need a bit of encouragement, or I'm having a very serious problem, or my life has literally been threatened. The entire spectrum. We want people to have access to the team. And I think that helps. I think our transparency and our neutrality helps, and to keep that respectful discourse going. I mean, sometimes it's amazing. You put that out there and somebody's made some baseless accusation. It happened with one of the people who came after Charlie this week. It is like, that's a very interesting thing you've said. And also it appears that either this tweet or your account are lying, because you cannot be 15 years old and also have been, quote, making liberals suffer, unquote, in the 1970s. So if you'd like to clarify which of these positions is in fact the truth, we'd be happy to bring this to further.
And that's a beautiful, powerful thing to have, is to be able to fight with the truth, right?
Yeah, and this comes to the notion of how these things are approached, and what truly defines trolling versus phishing or something else, because we've been accused of trolling ourselves, as well as most of the people in this group. Oh, you're the troll, you've done this. It's not terribly dissimilar to, well, if you heard it that way, that makes you the racist. It's like, does it really? Does it, in fact, make me the racist or the troll? In point of fact, just poking back and inquiring and trying to get the truth out of people, demanding that they hold themselves to that standard that we would expect for investigatory purposes. Because if somebody comes to us with a very serious threat, we're going to run that down, and we're going to take it to proper channels. We're going to direct it to the people who can help. But in order to do that, there can't be any gaps in the story. So, for instance, somebody says, well, I have full conversations with this individual, and they've said this, and they've done that, and it's very terrifying. Fantastic. I want all of that. I want you to get me screenshots with overlapping text so that I know you've neglected nothing, because, and this comes down to both the cynicism and the respect. I want to give that credence. The rest of us all do the same, but we also have to take everything with a grain of salt, right? Yeah. But if there's no gaps, we can argue very readily for your protection. There's no holes in the story. If there's any additional evidence you'd like to provide, we can give you an email. Please go ahead and give us everything you've got with absolutely no holes. And that very quickly neutralizes those people who just want to waste time, and offers a platform that people who really genuinely need help are not going to get a half-hearted effort, because all of a sudden we discover that something maybe that they said instigated something further, and then we all get caught behind the eight ball trying to solve the problem.
Okay, and on top of that...
Kervin, can I just say one thing too, real quick?
Go ahead, Charlie.
We need to repeat this. We need to repeat this to the show, if you can keep this in mind. For the listeners out there who are victims of trolls, or are watching people be victimized by trolls, there are two things you need to know. At Team Den Mom is the account that you can send a message to, and the team will get back with you. And you can use the hashtag #OpAtroll, OPATROLL, which someone asks, and this is what it stands for: op as in operation, patrol the trolls. So use those, please, and share that with people who are being victimized, and let's work together as a growing community to neuter and neutralize this problem.
And just to add to that, fantastic, and thank you very much for that, Charlie. We have come together as a team of people, and let me just expand on that, because although we've newly formed ourselves, we are already establishing ourselves as a nationwide movement, an international, worldwide, because I'm here in the UK. Right, and most of the people that are speaking on this particular show are not situated in the same place. Dinah is in Albuquerque. I forget where you are, Den Mom, but we're not going to say that anyway, because we need to keep you protected. And obviously,
I'm on the east coast of the U.S.
You're on the east coast of the U.S., and that's a good place to be. So yes. We're actually spread all over the place, but we are representing people from any and every walk of life who are finding themselves. We are prepared to support anybody who is walking from any walk of life who are finding themselves victims of these trolls. Now, I've just to establish what a troll is, I want to bring in Outlaw, who's been sitting very patiently and waiting on the outskirts, ready to come in. But just to give us an insight to what a troll is, what a troll does, what is the mentality of a troll, what makes a troll, and is a troll likely to carry out the threats that they're busy posting, and the fear that they're impacting onto their victims? Are they likely to carry out those threats? I'll hand that over to you, Outlaw.
All right. Well, to start out, trolling is it's really an art form. The purpose of a troll is to make the other person that they're talking to as mad as possible with words, just to show that either that they're wrong or that they're not hot shit, or sometimes in some of the cases you guys have been experiencing as bullies, because sometimes they're bored, sometimes they need to have some a power struggle or feel like they're better than others. What we're trying to accomplish here is to take the bullying aspect out of it, because it's not a constructive tool for humanity or the betterment of any of the societies, really. But it's still a necessary thing, because we can use that same mentality of trolling towards our government and the systems that are in place to question whether exactly why things are the way they are. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, because you got the good with the bad.
So is a troll likely to carry out the threats that he's trying to impact on his victim?
9 times out of 10, no. It really comes down to the individual person. And most of them are spending so much time online trolling that really not coming out and doing something about it or carrying out a threat, not really that much to worry about.
We kind of find that out when I'm going to come back to you in a second, Charlie. We kind of found that out when some of us began trolling the trolls last week. And one in particular was Cordova, otherwise known as David Piercy, who was relentless in his attacks on Stax and Charlie in particular. But when engaged with people with any form of or a lack of fear of him or what he could say or do, he engaged with them for as long as he could. But when he couldn't win, when he couldn't goad you in to his foolishness, he'd just block you. Charlie, how? I mean, you have been under attack by this particular individual for so long, and he has blocked you. He has reported you. He has had your account suspended from time to time on every aspect. He has defamed you, and he continues to generate an almost war, a Twitter war with you. Guys, somebody has got the show on in the background behind them, and they need to mute that. Just mute the sound, because it's not running in real time, and it really is echoing back into the show. But Charlie, if you was to be able to sum up how dangerous this man might be, how dangerous is he?
Well, Outlaw is correct. I would say that 9 times out of 10 is even an overstatement of how little it is likely for the primary troll to do more than sit behind the anonymity in their basement of a computer screen in the internet and just attack verbally. The danger, as we should be well aware, comes not necessarily from the primary troll, although some of them, like a David Piercy, are something to be concerned about. But the most effect that's dangerous is, as we've seen with attacks on Planned Parenthood, attacks on minority communities such as AME churches. It's not the ones making the statements first, but the ones who hear them and see it as a siren, clarion call to action and get their guns and go and shoot people. That really happens. Now, David Piercy, just to correct one thing, has not had my account suspended. I have had about 5 of his suspended, and he's had about 50 that we've identified that have been suspended since he began this action with the Trayvon Martin case. But this is a man who has gotten others to do his dirty work for him, and of course is not the ringleader, but is a pawn himself. And the more dangerous ones are behind him. And they are smart enough, usually, to stay quiet. But these people have gone to people's houses. And they actually film themselves doing it. David Piercy, when his first account was taken down by Twitter, went to San Francisco to Twitter headquarters and he put on YouTube a videotape of himself threatening Twitter.
Wow.
And yet they still allow this guy to get away with it. They have a responsibility to call the authorities and to take civil action against him. They know who he is. They're having to provide me knowledge of who he is. Of course, we know who he is because he's not hard to identify.
Yeah.
And the guy's not bright. That's what makes him dangerous.
Yeah. I
kind of got that. Yes, it's very dangerous, and that's why we have to protect ourselves as a community, and why we have to reach out to the rules and the law ourselves. They're our friends, not theirs.
Okay, let me move on to Team Den Mom a minute. And Diana, stand by because I'm going to come to you in a second. But Team Den Mom, some people might just turn around and say, well, you know what? If you're being attacked by people on the internet, just turn your internet off. Why go on the internet? But this is far deeper than that. It's much more penetrating than that. I mean, these trolls, the effect that they're having on some of these people's lives, and you have people who have to use the internet because they work at home. They're journalists who work at home. Some of them are disabled, so they can't get around. But the bottom line is, how far has these trolls gone in destroying lives or attempting to destroy the lives of people that we're talking about that have been affected and impacted by their behavior?
I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable that the degree to which, I mean, again, let me stress, there's a sort of a breakdown in the trolling community as to what level of threat they actually present. But that said, even the lesser ones, like this to me and the rest of my team comes down under the sort of like sticks and stones, etc., is not actually a valid response to bullying because it's not true. Psychological damage is damage.
Yeah.
And that needs to be acknowledged and respected. And just sometimes that's, again, where we come in with just a little nudge or a little digital hug or something like just keep up the good fight, stand proud. We have these hashtags that we use just as boosters, if not to, fight the good fight per se, just the quietly rising up fierce again and just helping other people to stand tall through the day. Because psychological damage is damaging. And so it shouldn't be minimized. But on the other end of the spectrum, I mean, you have people, they've lost jobs or businesses. Their finances are wrecked. They're losing their homes, or they have lost their homes. Threats to their family members, their children, their pets, and some of these, like if you go from the lesser, it's a bell curve. You've got your mid-grade. They've got way too much time on their hands, and they're going to just be a bother and get in the way of the work all day long. And on the weak end of the spectrum, you've got some people with clearly very little to do else in their lives who spend all day just playing the sticks and stones game. I know you are, but what am I, etc. But on the other hand, there's the 1 to 10% of people who are genuinely threatening, who'll show up at your home, take a photo of it, post it, and say, look where I've been. And that can be terrifying, and it rightfully should be. And that's just like, I showed up. What's next? You have people, again, it's a psychological terror, even if nothing happens. This comes back to the friends that I mentioned last week. They've had no overt issues since the point where their public information, their address and family members and things were made public on the internet. But they're constantly on guard now. It just puts you in a whole different mind frame. It's very traumatizing just to know that your privacy has been invaded if you're somebody who's guarded that. Or that you have family members, dependents, or people like that are going to be put at risk on account of you. It's equivalent to, I would say, an intruder's in your home and your neighbor stops by for a cup of sugar and they're the one that gets punched just because they stopped in at the wrong moment. Collateral damage, the person is in your life because of you. They wanted your house, and now this other person you care about has been injured. A sort of odd metaphor for that, but these are the things. The trauma and the worry extends far beyond people's individual concerns because everyone has people they care about. Everybody has people in their lives, except presumably some of these incredibly bored people who seem to be online literally 24/7. It is unbelievable how much stamina some people have to just sit there poking sticks at everyone. But this again, this comes back to, and I'm going to digress a little bit, to some of the things that we on the team have been doing aside from the more investigatory and hardline work that is our passion, because there was a thing that we put out earlier this week. There's a photo of two bears. You may have seen it.
Yeah. Right.
There's a teddy bear, a cuddly little teddy bear holding a plush heart, and then a wild bear on a path in a park somewhere, basically saying, we have two faces. You get to decide which one you see. But, it's based on your actions. It really is. And so part of what we do when we're not being the mean wild bear with the claws and the teeth and the whole thing is just to stay cuddly and to stay on point. And we enjoy the absolute heck out of creating ridiculous, funny hashtags that can just keep people's spirits up. Like, we stole your troll, the thing that happened yesterday.
Yeah.
And on this nature of the really disgusting language that was being leveled at you, Kervin, and others, the notion of the word feral being a synonym for some, much more conventional slurs, we'll say. All of a sudden, we've got 3 to 5 people I know of since yesterday who are on Team Feral because, you know what, I'd rather be feral than a bigot, and I think a lot of other people would agree.
Yeah.
And
that's been amazing. The wealth of support that we've received back from making that stand, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's been
and coming
encouraging.
out of the sense of humor, they don't expect it in some cases. Kindness, like lethal levels of kindness, and a sense of humor that just goes on for days, confuses people.
Yeah.
Oh, one of our people was just the last response they got was, "You are strange and unwell." Oh, thank you for pointing that out. So, just absolutely insightful of you to notice this. Thank you. We are very strange people.
Listen, let's just quickly shift over to Dinah. Dinah, are you there?
Yes.
Dinah, what kind of families are in need of help by Team Den Mum, for example? And I suppose we're looking at cases like Justice for Jackies.
Yes, definitely. The thing with the troll is because, like, social media is so new, it's really hard to say what is a true threat and what isn't, or is it just like some stupid cop's wife like defending the blue line, or is it somebody that's actually going to come out and cause some harm? The Lewis case that happened here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, it's by far a dirty shoot, and not by a police officer, but the police were actually shielding and protecting this the shooter, who was a white male, who shot a black teen, his identity, his protection, and it's so absurd. I've never even seen anything like that here, and you could see just about anything here in Albuquerque. And so they definitely need help with their trolls, with people going on, and really help weeding out who is, like the examples that were spoken about on the show, who is somebody that's just sort of logging on, who's bored, or somebody who's defending like the blue line, or somebody who's actually serious and may in fact cause harm. And so, people get trolled all the time. We know what trolls are. And because they are a new thing, I'll have to admit, I don't know much about the insights of a troll, other than I know that it's psychological warfare that could potentially cause, bodily harm, which now concerns me, because I'm like, wow, I'm thinking about all the times I've been trolled and how many times I've ignored it because I just thought it was a distraction. And I'm like, maybe I should revisit that, process that I've been going through. Let me see, probably people like Justice for Carrie Lives, they could probably use help with the trolls, because she gets trolled often, if not daily. It's just, I guess we could all probably just look at trolls a little differently.
Okay, just quickly, I just want to bring Den Mum back in. Den Mum, come back in.
All right. I do to stress something very, very important. I mean, because the very sad fact here is that not only have these families suffered just atrocious, appalling losses, but have been simultaneously thrown into the limelight. There's a thing that happens when you automatically just become an instant celebrity that becomes just very difficult, even if it's for a positive thing, right? But this is for a very traumatic thing. It's incredibly isolating. And if we're looking at just the type of woes that people on our team, people that we're working with, other people that we know from, the interwebs are dealing with, take that and then kick it up to a degree that is unimaginable for these families. I mean, people are terrified to turn to anyone because their level of trust, who's my real friend here, who's whatever, all the things that we are talking about, take that to the nth degree of unbelievable, disbelievable pain and suffering and difficulty to even know where to reach out. People who are afraid even to seek a therapist because they don't know what's going to happen to them if they do. And I would just like to stress, absolutely 100%, family members of anyone who's been a victim within any of these movements, all of these, the litany of names that hurts me to my absolute heart every time it goes up, because I have some friends who make a point of posting it every week, and it's just getting longer and longer, and I just weep. And the rest of us do as well, and whatever their emotional response is. We get angry, we get sad, we get a lot of things, and we want to get in there and help. And please, if people are in touch with family members of victims who need just someone to talk to, someone to refer them to the same kinds of resources that we would refer somebody to who is having a lesser issue, just that hug online or whatever. We will put them in touch with a real person. We will give them that extra level of care, because truly that's who we're fighting for right now, them and the people they've lost. That is the movement. That is the work we're trying to do that these other individuals are getting in the way of. So that just needed to be put out.
Absolutely. I'm absolutely.
I think that we will make an exceptional level of effort to see happen.
Okay, let's just go back to Charlie a second. Charlie? Hello, Charlie.
Ed?
Yep.
Dad?
Are you there? Just need to bring you back in. Revisiting the trolls we have encountered. He helped them with learning how to use the Freedom of Information Act. Now maybe it's time for something. You wanted to come back in with the Freedom of Information Act, how that can be used, especially in response to what Dinah was saying.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I think Dinah can attest to the situation in Albuquerque of how valuable it is to learn about the public records laws, and how valuable it is for someone who has some knowledge and has some willingness to help, to call out, even if you don't know them, and offer assistance. I met Dinah after I witnessed a brief coverage of a police execution of a homeless camper named James Boyd in Albuquerque.
Yeah.
And I began trying to inform the public that this happened, and I looked for the people in Albuquerque who were doing things, and there were a lot of them. And I reached out and found Dinah, and I said, "Hey, Dinah, I'm here to help if you need help. Tell me what you need, and let me make some suggestions." And one of the suggestions I make is own the public records law. Use the public records law. And I showed them a strategy that I have developed over the last 30 years of learning about these laws nationwide, which has proven effective not only in bringing out the evidence that even the major media was denied, such as videos and internal interviews about the shooting that proved and actually led to the only two officers in Albuquerque history to be charged with second-degree murder, but has this week led to the public records custodian, who I consciously would communicate in my requests themselves and in my communications with the request that, hey, don't let your bosses get you caught, because you yourself can be held both civilly and criminally liable if you don't produce the records. And we proved it to a point that he began pulling away, and we watched it happen as a lawyer who, for the city, became the one who would then deny the records. He's now claimed whistleblower status. He is now suing the city, and he now admits that the city of Albuquerque has been telling him and has been conducting this activity to deny and destroy records that implicate the city and police officers in criminal acts.
So how do we use this now information against the dangerous trolls?
Well, knowledge is power. And for example, look at David Percy is learning. He found my Scribd account after he made public records requests for what he thought was my probation officer, what he thought was the judge, like the judge is going to respond, and what he thought was the state attorney who could care less of what he's saying. In fact, he's only opening himself to these people seeing him. And the worst thing he could ever hope for is actually someone takes a bite and gives me the opportunity to drag him into illegal action of that nature. But I mean, he's copying the language I use in my public records request strategically, not knowing why. Because all you have to do to make a public records request is say, "Give me the record. I'm entitled to it." You don't even have to say the latter. They're supposed to know that. But,
hearing all of that, right?
But you can get the records from those agents. So when he threatened me, I went to all and I said, because of what he's saying. Every lie he's putting, they're coming after me, and I'm not. So that's how you use the public records law in terms of trolls. And you also use it when you file a complaint with a public agency, like a law enforcement agency. Use the public records law to follow up, like I am doing with that woman I said, the police officer's wife. I'm getting the records of the investigation into her and her husband, which is underway and has been conducted by both the police and the prosecuting attorney, who are concerned and who has filed a false police report claiming her Twitter account was hacked. And it's not her. And yet, I have proven to the police department that that is a false statement. It's a serious crime, and it's about to come back and bite her and her husband.
Okay, let's quickly bring in Dinah. Dinah's eager to jump in. Come in, Dinah.
Hi again. So, like Charlie was saying about the requesting public records to your benefit in response to trolls. So, let's say somebody is consistently saying that you hacked them or whatever the situation may be. You can go down, or you could file online, however you choose to do it, to request all police reports made against yourself. So at that point, you'd be able to see who has been filing reports on you, or you could, if you suspect it to be like a cop or somebody who works for the government, you could request information on Twitter accounts that had been made to actually like troll activists. That was recently highlighted in California. I don't have exactly the group that had performed the public info request concerning Twitter and Facebook accounts that were fake, that were designed to then troll people. And if somebody happens to be afraid to fill out a public records request, you can, in New Mexico, specifically New Mexico and Albuquerque, you can always come to us and we'll fill out the public records request on behalf of you. Not that they know that we're filling it out for you, and then we just, make the records available. So that's another way you can do things. Charlie also, in the instance of being afraid to file IPRA request, he had a whole bunch of different people just fill out requests, and random people were now picking up these highly needed records. And so there's a lot of ways you can get around the fear, but it does take like a collective, like a small team, and constantly always reaching out, because like I said, I think it is psychological warfare, and if the trolling has gone to the extent that you're now like at home and afraid to do things, like it's definitely impact your life. And reaching out to people is never wrong, and we should always do that in order to combat hatefulness and in the search of justice.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Dinah. Outlaw wanted to come in with the point of the attention being focused on the trolls. You want to come in, Outlaw?
Thank you.
Hi, Outlaw. Okay, let's quickly move to Den Mother. Mom?
Yes.
Okay, Outlaw was talking about the attention that was given to trolls and how that just encourages them. Now, for example, the likes of me and Outlaw would probably turn up on their doorstep and take them around the corner and have a very friendly, encouraging conversation with them, which would leave them less likely to want to Twitter us again when we finished. But not many people are made that way. So most people are withdrawn into a fear. So how best can they respond? What's their best means of response?
I think, first of all, the first trick is to take a breath. To just take a breath and recognize that, while no, it's not, quote, just words on the internet, it also is, to a point, words on the internet. There's a fine balance there, because much of this is just noise. It is nuisance distraction that is designed to be absolutely invasive and preventing people from doing the real work of the movements. Our objective here is to identify when that nuisance becomes not just a distraction but a threat, because it can in fact be threatening, but that is the smaller percentage. And usually those people who are targeted by that have already made themselves in some way a public figure, or they've nuisanced right back in order to create that neutralization possibility. So, this side work, as it were, this support structure of Team Dead Mother is designed to sort of take these people off the table so the real work can happen. But if you're just encountering this, you need to recognize that you may not in fact know what you're looking at, because many of us don't. Many people here are frontliners who are still just learning the internet, or at least just learning Twitter, which is its whole own community with mystical, magical languages and things that, it takes a while you dive into the deep end, and it's all very boggling, isn't it? So if this is something you've never encountered before, the best thing you can do is turn to your personal best resource and say, what am I looking at? What is this? Is this a thing that happens? Oh, this is a thing that happens. Now where do I go? And that's where we come in, and people like us, because we here in this conversation and others around us that are not currently on the radio have developed this community based on the way that our skill sets overlap, the way our interests overlap in trying to provide support, advocacy, etc., in the way that those skills serve one another, because we've got the backup sort of secretarial people, the tech folk. We've got the lightning rod. Hello, Charlie. Are you scorched yet? And we've got everybody that we need at the immediate moment that's just magically come together in a very, very short time to accomplish these really wondrous things and get some of these people out of the way of the real work. And these things can happen as well wherever you may be with whomever you know, because part of what makes us strong is that everybody here knows at least one or two other people who they've worked with, they've legitimized, they've been vetted, they're comfortable in real life, etc. They've been at a march or somewhere, or shared a cup of coffee. And so we know we're legitimate. We know what each other's skills are. We're very transparent within just our little circle of it. So we know if somebody's going to level a threat, is that baseless, or is there a foundation there that we just need to expose? Like, yes, that's absolutely a thing that person is dealing with. Thank you for pointing it out. We are all aware, and now you are too. Not actually a big secret. Thank you. Next accusation, please. So something other people can do. It absolutely is possible. We did it in a week. And there's a lot of people here going, this Twitter thing, what? I don't twit. What is... you can do that part, please. Right? And that's just one thing. That's one thing that everybody's using, except for it takes a while to get your sea legs with it. So if you don't know what you're looking at, find someone who does. If you feel alone, find someone so you're not. That's the really short answer. And if you really are lost, if you really have no one, if you're very isolated, come to us and people like us. And if we can't help or whatever, most chances are we can point you somewhere to someone who will and who can.
We could at least be a sponge to absorb
exactly
what it is that concerns you and help relieve you and advise and comfort you at the very least.
Part of what Team Dead Mother is trying to do as sort of a neutral party, again, intersectional across movements, we are not experts in absolutely every movement, but we're passionate about social change, social justice for all people. And so if somebody comes to us, and they just need that comfort, absolutely, they can have it. And if they have a query, I mean, the hardest thing to say on this earth some days is I don't know. But the trick is to follow it up with, and I will do my best to find out the answer for you. And it's something that we can do. We can refer people out. The greatest strength that we have collectively is the number of other people that we know. And the better part of wisdom is knowing where to find the answer you need. So as a clearinghouse, as it were, for these kinds of things, some of these issues are above our pay grade. If they need the public record search, if they need something, they need an attorney. We're not attorneys necessarily, though that some of us have legal expertise, things of that nature, but we can find you one.
Yeah.
If you need a public record search done and point you somewhere that's do it, or they can do it. These are things that can happen. So it's not about we know everything. It's more like we know a great deal of everybody.
Yeah. Well, one of our most vocal activists was actually went into hiding, left the scene because of threats to her family. And although we respect her decision, one of the things that we believe is that if she'd had the support that we're offering right now, maybe she wouldn't have had to have done that. And the thing is, when you look at some of the things, like, for example, the one particular tweet which shocked everybody at the beginning, just after the show, which was the one from allegedly Andy Pawley, calling for the lynching of Tamir Rice's mother. Now, you're talking about a woman who is still grieving for the loss of her son because justice still has not been done. No one is paying for the crime of taking the life of her 12-year-old boy. So here you have this woman in the middle of a grieving situation, still trying to come to grips with why people ain't bringing her about some sort of charge so she can put this thing to bed. And then here comes this attack from the trolls. And fortunately for Tamir Rice's mother, she actually has people around her that could probably support her, and she may her herself may not be in need of something like Team Dem Never just now, but it could work for her in the future. But there are others. If they came under that sort of attack, it would be absolutely detrimental, wouldn't it?
Yes.
So how do we reach out to the other groups? How do we make ourselves approachable to the other groups so they're fully aware to extend what we're doing right here at Team Den Mom, so that it becomes accessible to all?
Well, our Den Moms have been working hard researching. We're trying to collate, the most possible accounts of interest to sundry current movements, hotspots geographically, like Albuquerque, places like that. We're trying to, again, diversify our news stream so that we're hearing about different things. A good example from this past week would be the Benny situation in New Jersey, right? The teenager who was brought into the principal's office on account of posting some pro-Palestine things on Twitter and was called on the carpet, and it's become this huge national or international story at this point, and it's unbelievable. And this young person, I mean, I swear, if I had half the ability to be articulate at this age, I'd be a heck of a person. I'm so impressed. But because we've been following, not on personal streams, on the Den Mother stream, on our news feed is full of issues, and we continue to reach out, even just retweeting, like with a hashtag of, like, there was a woman yesterday who was kicked out of the Trump rally, right? So hashtag Islamophobia, hashtag Trump gets us a little bit of attention from the people who care about that. The Benny thing. I stand with Benny, hashtag Palestine, hashtag Israel, catches the attention of people who care about these things. We follow LGBTQIA issues, and sometimes we share it along, sometimes we comment, it all depends. And the more of these things that we can find, be exposed to, be referred to, the more outlets we have to put it out there. As soon as we make contact with an individual who's having a slight issue, however tiny, literally, it could just be a bad day, within a new mood, and it could be a literally new movement, like Benny's. It really just happened days ago. We connect with, if there's an op, if there's whatever. We're not affiliated directly, but they usually are a good clearinghouse for news. So that means that
we reach out, then they reach out. Word of mouth is a powerful. At Team DenMom, use our hashtag OPA troll. If it is actually something of urgency, hashtag urgent, all capitals. Follow that. If you're afraid to tag in the person and give a mention that's going to come back to you.
Direct message.
Direct message. Absolutely. It does not have to be public. Our direct messages are open to the public, and we welcome them. So if nothing else, you can always come to us. And, we try very hard to stay on top of, and we also count work to point us at things that we should be paying attention to. So, for instance, some of us on our individual feeds were following the Flint water crisis. And all of a sudden we realized we're not following any of that on the communal timeline, and that's something that needed to be remedied. So now that's got covered. And now we can stay on top of all of these issues, and we can create lists if we need to when it gets to the point where it's overwhelming. But mostly we just like to see all of it scroll by all day long so that we don't miss anything.
Okay, I want to bring Outlaw back in. Is Outlaw still there? Hi, Outlaw. Are you there, Outlaw?
Yeah.
Okay, here's where I want to bring you in, and thank you very much for that roundup there, DenMom. And we're going to bring you back.
Did that answer your question? Because I know it diverged a little bit.
No, that's fine. But we're going to bring you back in very close, very soon. I just wanted to shift to something else for a minute, because in all of that, what we've discovered, is that people are using multiple accounts in order for them to be able to hide their true identity. And I'm going to ask Outlaw, to explain socks, bots, and docs, and all the rest of that, and explain a bit more to the ordinary listener how someone is actually able to create these multiple identities in order for them to launch these attacks that the victims that we're talking about are finding themselves coming under. I'll hand that over to you, Outlaw. First of all, tell our audience what are the socks, or what are they?
All right. Well, there are different ways to go about these, making the different identities. Some of them are people that actually have operate under pseudonym or fake accounts, that they really don't care if they get banned or suspended. It's created just to troll. Other ones are bots that have a set amount of responses and stuff like that, if they're trying to flood your page or something like that, to basically discourage what you're saying. There's all kinds of ways that it can be done, and it's really difficult to track down the actual person behind it. So if it becomes a problem, one of the things that you can do, which I try to I always recommend against, because usually if you just ignore a troll, they go away, they get bored. Usually, but if it becomes a problem, then what you do is you engage them. And you engage them on a confrontational level to the point of responding to something they say, because they're going to see what you're saying, and they're going to want to respond. And by doing that, you can start to narrow out the psychological profile of the person. And you can look for all kinds of clues as to who they really are, because about half the time a troll is somebody you know, or deal with regularly, because they want to know what you're talking about and what you're about. But they don't know how to tell it. They don't know how to tell their friends, I think you're wrong about this, and maybe there's a better way. So instead, they just troll.
Right.
So it's kind of, there's all kinds of reasons why trolls exist, all kinds of ways that they operate, and shutting them down isn't necessarily the best option. I want to stress that ignoring them is the best option, but if they become a problem, as far as like threatening your life or anything like that, then feel free, contact Team Den Mother. They'll get a hold of us and some other people, and we will investigate and we will engage them for you and we will figure out who they are, and we will figure out why they're doing what they're doing.
And that's exactly what we did last week, wasn't it, Charlie? When we decided to engage on behalf of Stax, was that we just jumped right on in there. And started jumping in on the tweets that they were tweeting, A, to her, and B, what you were tweeting to them and they were tweeting back to you. And before you know it, by hashtagging and including other people into that conversation, all of a sudden a wealth of people joined in support, because I saw names coming into those conversations that weren't there when we initially started our conversations with David Piercy, David Cordova, or whatever he wants to call himself whenever he chooses to use his different accounts. But a whole wealth of people from different places started to come in on those conversations. And then I also got inundated with inbox messages, direct messages from individuals who had been attacked by him, some of them who have actually legitimate lawsuits against him, one in particular who's actually got a restraining order against him. And yet, with these multiple accounts, he is still able to either himself or through the rest of these groups that he associates with find ways to attack individuals. How else can we stem the flow of this attack for individuals who are finding themselves attacked this way, Charlie?
Well, it is indeed exactly what we did. And I think the two key examples that came out of that initial start of this was the defense of Stax, as well what immediately became obvious, which was the attack on Tamir Rice's mother by Andy Pauley, the wife of the Joliet, Illinois police officer Michael, and the call for her to be hung and for the lynching of black people. That just set off a set of ripples throughout the internet sphere and outside it. What people don't seem to realize, though, is the biggest impact doesn't come from those who speak, and particularly speak often using Twitter, but those who lurk in the background and just watch. And those ripples have become waves and are having a wider and wider impact that is beyond our control. We just dropped the pebble in the pond. And I think you're going to see in the next couple of weeks a few news stories and a few facts emerge about legal actions and prosecutions for criminal activities and things like that will turn this into a shockwave that's going to reverberate around the world. And I think it's and I certainly hope it has a positive impact.
I want to. Part of what we were going to do with this show was that the whole restructuring of community, the bringing together, and on that, as you guys, we were talking late into the night last night, and I said to you I was going to go to the sauna first thing this morning because I needed to. I like sitting down in the sauna, having a nice little chill out time and refreshing, just clearing up my mind. And the one thing that came into my mind while I was sat in the sauna this morning was this. 9 times out of 10, most people try to get people on side by telling them, look at how these people are hating on me. And then get those people to come on side and then transfer that hate. Let's hate those that are hating on us. And I want to make sure that we, in particular, stay clear of that, because transferring the hate cannot obviously be what we're about. It's about working through love, right? Would you agree with that?
It is.
Yeah?
I mean, it is. It is, absolutely.
Because the moment you start transferring hate, do we not just become like them? And that's what I'm seeing, spread across some of these groups that are and organizations that are venturing their stuff out there on Facebook, etc. Is redistributing the hate, and I don't want to be party to redistributing the hate, because that's not going to bring about results.
Oh, sorry.
No, come in, Tim. Then.
I was just going to say that one of the most heartwarming things to us on the team so far. I mean, it's so gratifying to see people picking up the hashtag, sharing it around. It's so gratifying to be getting the likes and shares and whatever. So on a personal level, that's wonderful. It means that people's attention is being got. It's not about our pride. It's about the reach that we are achieving. But the thing that really is the psychic revenue, I think, for a lot of us, as we call it, because, there's no paycheck for this. It's just out of our love. And so one of the things that we throw out there as the encouraging hashtags, because as I say, we have menacing hashtags or our alert monitored hashtags, and then we just have the encouragement ones, and we stand by hashtag one family and hashtag love wins with all of our hearts. And to see those two hashtags just getting put out there by people whose name I've never heard, no one here has ever known, it warms the heart. It makes us feel so good. And the people who've come back to us saying, yes, absolutely, this loving tactic, this is the way to be. Why should people behave like this at all? It's so good to see something that resembles loving, reasonable discourse on this platform that is so chaotic. Love wins, and it's getting out there, and we love it.
Absolutely.
We love love.
We love love. And the funny thing is, the amount of love that I got shown by people that I don't know and I've still not spoken to, the numerous amount of tweets that I saw in response to David Pearcey's attack on me on Twitter last week was really heartwarming. And it comforted me. So if I was a weak person, and I don't want to be derogatory to anybody, because to call somebody weak is not a good thing to say. But if I was somebody who wasn't as strong-minded as I am, who wasn't as resourceful as I am, who wasn't as together as I am, I might be somebody that could have crumbled. Or begun to crumble underneath some of that attack that he was coming, and some of the name calling and the racist slurs that were coming out. I could have just coiled up into a little bit of a shell and be withdrawn and become depressed in some way, which would have had an effect on my life and my family around me and what I did and how I worked and everything else. So to know that we have the capability to bring about that wave of response for somebody who was in trouble just because of who we are and what we do and what we stand for must be something that spurs each and every single one of us on to make this thing work for the betterment of restructuring our community and restoring faith to the extent where people can actually feel that even under the wealth of attack that they're under, that there is somebody somewhere that they can turn to that can give them some sort of a comfort, some sort of a guidance as how they can remain on their feet without crumbling under the wealth of attack that some of these trolls can unwittingly put on somebody without no understanding of the real damage that it can do. And for that reason alone, I really wish that Stax was here on the show today. So
Kervin,
go ahead.
Dan Mom can speak to this as well, because she was there and got involved in her role. But last night, to show just what our real motives are, if anybody wants to question, that's healthy. Just go look at the record. It's all out there on the Twitter sphere. Look to my timeline, which is I don't block anybody. Look to this individual's timeline. Look to Den Mom and look to the hashtags. But late last night, after David Pearcey had about 4 accounts shut down throughout the day, and he was sort of, even though he created others, very problematic, but he was hanging low, and he got other people to come and do the attacks again. He conned them into it. And a young kid, about 19 years old, who wants to be a police officer and clearly is misguided but sincere, immediately jumps in out of nowhere and says he's hunting me because of my attacks on children, reference to the pedophile charge.
Incidentally, the baseless accusations that I knocked back on that one person who was simultaneously 15 years old and alive in the 70s.
Yeah, right. So I spent literally most of the night, as you know, Kervin, I was up all night. So
Absolutely.
5, 6 this morning. I spoke most of the night. I immediately said to him, I said, okay, I'll add you to the legal action. And he, initially challenged me. Oh, you can't do that, because he's listening to people who are telling him this stuff. Oh, you can't bring a defamation because I didn't say it was you. No, that's not true. You can't sue me because I'm in Texas and you're in Florida. I said, no. And he tells people, Okie Fanoki person on there, that's this woman is a real nutcase. But, she's telling them, don't open links when I put newspaper articles saying I've done it before. Here's a $6 million judgment I got saying the same thing about me and my turning around and acting on it. It will be done against anybody else, I assure you. And it will happen. And don't
fall into the trap. Don't be misused by these people.
Yeah.
And eventually he got a little anxious. And I said to him, I said, look, I researched as much as I could about him. I looked at him, and Ninjette came to me and she said, don't be hard on him. I think, look, he's lonely. He's talking about he doesn't have a girlfriend. And she can say, because sorry.
Are you okay, Charlie? Den Mom, do you want to just come in there? Just come in, Den Mom.
Yes,
I don't like to see these people go through this. And
I
walk them through it.
And that's what
apologize.
That's what we're talking about on this show. We're not
let
animals.
Me just chime in. Charlie, collect yourself and as best you can. It is very difficult. It's emotional because here's the thing: it's difficult to see people going through the harassment, the online harassment, the in real life harassment they've been receiving, the threats. But what's also very painful is to see people who are well-meaning, and
being drawn into this.
Being drawn into this because they see these other accounts who are so active as being credible, and if nothing else, it's basically just a failure of research. In the same way that things will just get passed around Facebook, and then the first thing that somebody chimes in is, "Nope, check Snopes. That's not actually a thing." It's very hard to verify an individual on Twitter, especially somebody who may or may not have multiple semi-anonymized or completely anonymized accounts, right? Or who just keeps popping up in different forms, and that has their rhetoric all nailed down, so they sound like some kind of authority, right? That doesn't make them an authority; they just sound like one. And if you don't know what you're experiencing, if you don't know what you're looking at, it can be something that a susceptible individual or an interested individual who doesn't realize how much underlies and underpins those statements, who is good intentioned, who is very well. This person seemed very well intentioned, absolutely, and it was sad to see. It always is. We have somebody who's well intentioned, just sort of being brought under the fold of this toxic influence. So that's a different kind of sadness, but it's something that we try to prevent. And one of the ways that we handled this last thing was, not really certain where this person falls right now, but Charlie was engaging in direct discourse with this person, saying these are baseless allegations, it's been shown, et cetera, and in the manner of Team Den Mother, we come at it with respect. We've setting that so many people are just prepared to believe whatever they hear on the internet. That's all that got said at that point. And then Charlie chimed in further with here's the thing. I understand you want to hunt down people who do these dreadful things. That's an admirable thing. Maybe, though, make certain the people you're going for are, in fact, the perpetrators of these awful crimes you're describing. And all of a sudden, that's when the backpedal hits. And wouldn't you know, by the end of it, we've got Charlie saying, "I accept your apology," and Team Den Mother saying, "And we as well appreciate you being so forthright about your position and your mea culpa."
And here's the amazing thing, is that even Charlie, being the one that was under attack, understanding that the human behind the person that was attacking him is what just broke him down just now, which shows the intent of our heart and the integrity of our purpose. We're not here to shoot anybody down. We're not here to redistribute hate. We're here defending a just and a right cause, which is the defense of those being victimized by people who should know better but choose not to do better. When we're talking about people who want to believe in a law enforcement agency, one that has long since died, the community officer went out the window with the baby and the bathwater, right? We haven't seen community policing in God knows how long. We haven't seen appropriate policing in how long. And I fully understand a policeman's wife who would want to defend her husband, who she believes goes out there every day to put his life on the line. I fully understand that, and I fully understand them wanting to stand behind their man. But what about the mother of the 12-year-old child who's shot in a playground? While remember, and we must remember this, although the police were called out because Tamir Rice was playing with a gun in a park, at the time Tamir Rice was shot, the gun was not in his hand. right? So therefore, you haven't even got a child playing with a toy gun being shot. You've got a child who was playing with a gun, who now hasn't got a gun, being shot and killed. So what therefore, how much more compassion should we not have for the mother who's lost her child? Your police officers choose to go out onto the force. No one's saying that that justifies them being killed, shot at, or attacked in any way. But that's an element of risk that they take on when they choose to do this job. When you send your child out onto a park to go and play, you don't expect somebody to come and knock your door telling you a policeman has just shot him dead. There's a huge difference in that. But in order for us to be able to defend that, it appears that we are seen to be attacking the police, yet that's not what we're doing, are we?
No, and if I may again, go ahead.
No, I just go ahead in a second, but not at all. We are asking the country, both the citizens and those we vest authority, to put limits of reasonability and to concern ourselves with true justice as the outcome of all acts of authority to prevent the harm by the state of the most serious. I mean, shooting and killing people is not the job of the police, and that's what we want. Good policing. I want police officers to be treated as a profession. I think they should be paid 3, 4, 5 times higher. They should be highly trained and exclusively selected. But we don't prioritize it, so we don't put that kind of money into the process. It's cheaper to pay the lowest common denominator, minimum wage in effect, for policing, and go out there and just do as you wish. And that's irresponsible. And that's a responsibility both of those public authorities and us as a citizenry. We have to take responsibility for that and do something to fix that.
I just want to bring Dinah, because Dinah's been on the verge for a while on the outskirts. I just want to bring her in, but I want to make this comment before I do so, and hopefully she may well be able to respond on that for me. In my thoughts, I've thought this because people talk about we want, it's anarchy. We want to disrespect authority. We're ganging up against the police and all the rest of it. I actually believe, right. People make mistakes. There's nothing wrong with making a mistake. A police officer who says, and I've said this before on this show, a police officer who says, I thought he was reaching for his gun, but I made a mistake. It's something that it won't bring your child back, but you can get that. But I suppose what we're really talking about here is the moment they begin to lie, the moment they begin to start planting evidence, the moment they start switching their stories and putting something derogatory on the person that they've just killed in order for them to justify what they've just done and protect their position, that then becomes murder. And that shifts the whole thing away from an accidental shooting to intentional murder. Now, surely, when we're talking about police corruption and police brutality and unlawful killing, we're not talking about police officers who've actually, in the call of duty, have had to go out and defend the community against gangbangers and rapers and murderers and bank robbers who are running around shooting up the street. We're talking about police officers who've killed, shot, unarmed individual and predominantly black individuals, to say the least, making it appear to be more racist, whether people want to agree with that or not. But the moment they start covering it up, the moment they start planting evidence, the moment they start putting in guns next to bodies that they've then killed, and like we saw in a video just a couple of weeks ago, the moment a police officer can accidentally shoot his own colleague with a gun and then plant that said gun on the person that they've just killed in order for them to justify, right, what they've just done. Surely that's not anything that anybody with any common sense, whether it's a policeman's wife or a local mayor, should want to stand behind and support. Dinah, do you want to come in and just respond to that?
Yeah, often like when I'm reading things and people's responses that are in support of like the police, it seems like it's black and white. So you're either pro or you're anti. And that there's no in between, and like a lot of people have this assumption that I'm like anti-police, when in fact I'm not. In fact, what I'm against is like the desecration of the process. You know, it's all about the process that I am in support of. And it seems that if somebody says along the line that, okay, officer so-and-so, he did murder somebody, and, you know, he was a douchebag, he should be brought up on charges, and he should go to jail and face the law, that if people were to start saying that, then they have to almost see everything else. And I think it's always like the truth that everybody wants, but in reality, it seems that the lie is just so much more comfortable to be in, because once we start saying that, yeah, okay, well, these cops have murdered people, then we actually have to deal with it. Whereas it's easy to take the position of like, well, that person was a douchebag, that person was homeless and dirty, that person had a criminal record, that person shouldn't have been running from the police, well, that person shouldn't have been playing with the fake gun, that's his mama's fault, or whatever absurd defense that's going to be portrayed and communicated. It's easy to say those things in spite of them being absurd, because dealing with the reality is so much more painful. But it's going to require that in order to fix anything. Like, I've never been against police officers. I mean, I'm against the brutality, and I'm against unlawful killings and corruptions and murder and co-conspirators from my government. But that doesn't make me any less in support of like, hey, our police department needs X, Y, and Z in order to perform their function. Like, that's a reasonable statement, but people want to be unreasonable because I think nobody knows what to do.
Okay, I just want to bring, before we move away or we move on from anything else, remember we're coming up to the last 15 minutes of the show. We've probably still got quite a few things that are still left unsaid. But we're still in the middle of talking about the people, families, individuals being drawn in into this web of hate by the trolls, such as those that we've mentioned. And I believe that Denmum wanted to come in and say something on that just before we moved on.
I do. I was just going to say that, I feel, as you were saying, that many individuals, most individuals perhaps, don't start out sort of where they've ended up in life. The culture that we're all a part of, both broadly and specifically our subcultures, informs our responses. And with the police or other people, it could be a lack of training. I mean, for instance, people with mental illness or other developmental disabilities have had a huge preponderance of issues with the police over just the statistics over the last year, which is another cause that we're very passionate about here at TDM. But then when you look at anyone from a family member to a police officer who may or may not in fact have been culpable, but was maybe just called in on the same call, being thrust into the media limelight, that sudden celebrity factor, that is a thing. And then in so many cases, you have a very relatively small handful of veterans within a movement, within the social media environment, a police force, or wherever they happen to be, who are jaded, who may be malicious, and who have influence on others. And you only need a small number of instigators to send the boulder rolling downhill. You really don't. You just need a handful of people on either side of an argument for it to blow up into a full-on riot, either online or in real life. It's been seen. It's happened. It literally happened in Baltimore in April. That is exactly how things went. And to take these highly systemic issues and get them sorted out, it's almost impossible when you look at the just umbrella of it and the history of it, and it's so overwhelming. So part of our value set here, beginning with the individuals, I mean, it really takes exactly what Charlie showed with that emotional breakdown that was so heartrending, because we do have strong feelings about this. We try very hard not to let our personal biases inform our work, but that does not mean we can't have feelings about it, and we have to, because as soon as you dissociate from it is when the love dies, and again, we're so keen on that. And so the value set that we try to espouse as a team, justice, compassion, and respect, that extends to everyone who's being damaged by this ugliness and the social environment that's around it, regardless of where they stand within the problem, because these problems are not exclusive to anything. They're the systemic disenfranchisement, the systemic violence literally affects everyone in society, whether they realize it or not, whether you benefit from it in some little way, whether it harms you only in a subconscious way, or whether it's cost you a family member or many family members. Nobody is exempt, and we have nothing but compassion and respect for those people dealing with it on a direct level, and just want to see justice happen, starting with the smallest thing, the smallest hug.
The smallest. Absolutely. Words that are pulling up my heartstrings as you speak. Ronnie Canada, are you still there?
I'm still here.
Ronnie, before we close the show, we're running into our last 10 minutes, and we've probably got a little bit of time just to get in a couple of things. I just wanted to ask you a question. You've been on the show, you've been listening to the show live on real time for almost the last 2 hours. We opened with you talking about the use of your track on our particular show. And I know you've listened to my show on several occasions, and you've been part of my shows on many occasions. But being part of listening to it as it's being discussed, how does that make you feel about what you're hearing going on in this forum as we speak? How has that got you feeling, and in an understanding how best your music can then go on and be used from here on in?
It makes me feel like, see, I never heard the terminology of troll, but I'm learning something. Like troll, they must be like stalkers, like you said, people that's hacking into you and hating on you. So I'm getting an understanding on something new here with the troll situation. But I think it's devastating that people would just try to tear you down all the time when you're trying to do something good.
Yeah. Look, thank you very much for that. But I want to bring in Charlie, and then I'm going to come back in with Denman. But Charlie, are you there?
Yes. Yep.
There was something that you wanted to add, I believe.
I just want to reiterate something I said earlier in terms of getting information to the public, but I want to call out to everybody listening. Anybody who's a victim of trolls, or anybody who's watching someone be victimized by trolls, reach out to us at the hashtag #UpATroll, hashtag OPATROLL, and to the @TeamDenMom, and give us the information, make a call to help, but also don't, when I say us and we, I'm not talking about an exclusive, closed, small group of people. It's an open concept. And I'm asking all those people to also become part of that we, to join us as a growing and developing community, to become part of the solution to this extremely significant and severe problem being faced worldwide.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Dinah, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Dinah, I just want you to just feedback very quickly, as an activist, hearing what you've just heard from the team of people that are Go Team Denmom, right? How confident are you that we can accomplish what it is that we're set out to do to support people like yourselves and the victims of this hate crime?
Well, sitting here again, I'm getting educated, like in the process, because it's something that I haven't paid much attention to. But hearing everything and the information that I have, that I was able to gather from you guys, I have absolute confidence that that this is something very positive, and it's done in the name of justice, and it's done through love or because of love. And whatever I can do to help you guys, you can count Albuquerque in. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you. And Outlaw, are you still there? Okay, we've lost Outlaw again for a moment. Just coming back to you, Denmom.
I think. Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
Yeah, no, you go on.
I simply the only thing I can add at this point is I believe that this is why we're able to win and win small victories so quickly. You know, this shared value set that we've brought together, that we have the sense of community that we're building and extending upon that notion of love winning. Love winning is why we win, ultimately. We may not win the big battle today or tomorrow or whatever, but it gets won. It gets won a little bit every single day. And Charlie, thank you so much for plugging the account. Thank you so much for plugging the hashtag. Again, that's @TeamDenMom. and hashtag OPATROLL to get in touch with us if you have a legitimate issue or think that you might. But I would also very much to we again have our direct message stream open to the public. If you're curious about if you have need a hug or a digital cup of coffee, or if you're in the geography of one of us and a real one is on the offing, then by all means, please just be in touch. We're trying to build this network. We want to get to know people across movements and just spread this message of love and compassion. And again, at the risk of sounding trite, a slightly higher level of discourse and respect in what is a very chaotic online environment and in real life.
Amen. And,
some of what you just said got cut off. The signal got, but I think just to put what got missing, I think you were calling for people also to contact us just to say hi or even to just ask questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
You know,
please be in touch.
An online hug.
Tell us how your life is going. What are you passionate about? We want to know what other people besides ourselves are passionate about, because we're not an endless resource of people with an endless number of passions. There's movements out there none of us are involved in, and we'd like to hear about them.
And
please be in touch.
Just finally, let them know that we've got a website that we're building that's about to come online.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how far off we are from that, but we are building that will have a tremendous amount of resources and access to resources, information, and contact that will allow you to be part of what's going on here at Team Den Mother, right?
Yes, we are working on the website. We're essentially trying to figure out what is the best way that we can get the most possible information out there, provide the greatest number of resources. We've decided we were going to try and throw something up onto the internet by this broadcast, and then later sat back and went, you know what, we'd rather do this right the first time than fast and shoddy. So it may be in time for the next. It may be tomorrow if I have a massive brainwave and can code all night. I'll make some more of my famous coffee. But we'll just have to see about that. But we'll keep the Twitter updated as to progress, and in the meantime, continue to provide resources and news bulletins and things through the Twitter stream, if nothing else. And as soon as that site goes live, trust me, it will be made very, very plain that is a resource and available to all.
Just a couple of things before we go. Ronnie Canada, you still there?
I'm still here.
Okay, a message from the entire team right here at Team Den Mother and Issues Today. We want to thank you for your music, and Ninjet's producer wants to specifically tell you that your music inspires us and inspires what we do right here on Issues Today, and has been the linchpin, the launch of the movement that is to become the new Team Den Mother. Okay, so we just want to thank you for allowing us to use your song in order for us to put it out there on the show. It speaks volumes. I paid the crime. I paid for my crime. I've done my time. The death sentence is a far greater punishment than what the crime entails. And just before we close, World Jam Global Management has just sent me a message wanting to thank each and every single one of you that are here on this show right now. Dinah Vargas, Charlie Graspy, Outlaw, Denmum, Ronnie Canada. Have I missed out anybody? I think I've got you all. We've got 2 minutes. We've got 2 minutes left, and
2 minutes.
We've got two whole minutes.
Yeah. I just wish we could have Ronnie sing his song.
That would be wonderful. I'd also like to say that, for any troll type folk or people who are not sure where they fall in their alignments, that there's talents that can be used to a good purpose, like this sort of counter trolling issue of coming at them with just the simple truth and seeing what happens. If you're not really sure where your allegiance lies, try out the side of love and compassion and see how it suits you.
Love always wins. Love always wins. A final message to those that are being drawn in by the trolls unwittingly. Think before you act.
Well, I'm going to sing another song, Kervin. Everybody hear me now. I got another song I'm going to sing you. It's a trancy song. And it's called Stop Playing With My Mind. And it's talking about Skyping me. Stop Twittering me. Stop bullying me.
Dan, you better hurry up and sing it because we've got 40 seconds.
No, I'm gonna send it to you.
Go.
Send it to you.
Oh, you're going to send it to me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Stop playing with my mind. Stop Twittering me. Stop Skyping me. Stop bullying me. You got to hear that one. I'm going to send it to you.
Okay, write it.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Just send it to me. We'll definitely we'll open up with one and we'll close with the other. I'm quite happy to do that. But look,
it's for the trolls.
It's for the trolls. Well, guys, I just want to thank each and every one of you that have been on the show. It's been an absolutely amazing show. For each of your contributions, once again, it's been an amazing show, and I think we're just about out of here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Thanks, Ronnie. Happy New Year.
Right,
You too.
ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
I will let you know the moment the show is downloaded. It's time for us to hand over. We've got Sean coming in from the Bronx, New York, with the One Drop Reggae Show. Thanks very much, guys.
From the Jam Global Radio, this is Clarity.